Hi, this is Alexandros with Land of the Nerds. We're once again doing our interviews with the artists here at the Phoenix Convention Center. We're doing Phoenix Comic Con, which is going obviously all weekend from June 5 to 8 here at the Phoenix Convention Center and here at the Arizona Latino Arts Center. We're premiering a number of outstanding artists. Here we have Jeff Barbanell with the, I apologize, I can't remember the full names for your organization, sir.
Yes, I am a member of a lot of organizations, but my company is Scholastic Innovations, LLC.
Okay.
You got it.
For some reason I was thinking of Scholastic applications.
But that's just an umbrella, so
Okay.
we'll get into all the other groups.
Okay, perfectly fine. All right. Anyway, we were talking earlier about your work to get technology and applications into the schoolroom, so we're not sitting there with just pens and papers trying to teach visual learners and verbal learners with the same curriculum. You know, there's a curriculum for every student to make everyone as wonderful as possible. I understand that's most of what your work is dealing with getting kids the training they need.
Yes, I think it starts with speaking the language that the kids are into, what they use. So because of our society and the technology that has developed, sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect between the teachers and the principals or the librarians and the kids. And they're thinking in terms of what they see on a screen, they're thinking in terms of movies, they're thinking in terms of TV, and the way that they conceive of characters and narratives is a little bit different than we do.
So we're moving the teacher from not just teaching the idea, but to sort of as a storyteller to help progress that story, whether it's history, whether it's English, whether it's the story of how science progresses us and makes us more than just teaching.
Yes, the content really doesn't change. It's really a matter of language, and it's a matter of the tools of being able to teach and, well, produce something on the part of the student to, in their case, you know, demonstrate that they have that learning, that they've learned that content.
Okay. I know at least the focus that you and I were having a conversation earlier, we were talking about getting comic books into the classroom. So
Yes.
that we're advancing not just normal textual novels where we're handed these 300-page copies of The Great Gatsby, but we get to be handed multimedia presentations. We're working with PowerPoint. We're working with, I think you said, Comic Life to help them create comic books.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can get these really neat pictorial discussions in so that they can put it together in their minds.
Well, exactly. There's a couple of different approaches. One is to actually use a combination of words and pictures to illuminate the text. So, you know, you can use something like The Great Gatsby, you can use the book, you can use a graphic novel format, you can use a movie. So we're looking at a bunch of different media platforms. But the second thing is to actually get the child, the student, to produce in one of those other formats. So they may be creating a comic, they may be creating a short film, they may be creating something that demonstrates that they understand what the text is about.
So we're taking it not just in a mantra, but we're putting it in sutras and tantras as well.
Oh, that's one way of looking at it. Very nice. Namaste.
I know we were talking about you were using, what was the multimedia? You were talking about Fusion?
Well, yes, Multimedia Fusion is one of the programs, software that we use, and we find that it's very intuitive. You don't need to know coding, although there is a way to integrate a coding lesson into it. But it's very simple. There's a lot of pushing of buttons and logical information processing so that they can actually create something visual.
At least something I could even use even as an adult. So you're saying that you use it for video game design. What's the lowest sort of age group you can start teaching video games?
Well, it's pretty fascinating. I think as time goes on, we're going to be surprised at how young we can go. Personally, I've worked with fourth graders on up to eighth graders, and so but I'm fascinated with the possibility you can actually work with kids that are younger than that.
So you said you've seen, what kind of video games are they creating in the classroom?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the whole thing and what I'm talking about here at Comic-Con, I'll be doing a few sessions, but my main session about media production for elementary school students is about how they have their own story. Every child tells a story, and that's what it's about. And it turns out that they have their own narrative. As far as what the content of that narrative is, when we do something that's more after school and recreational, then they get a chance to choose what they want to do. So that means it may involve zombies or ninjas or princesses or unicorns or whatever it is
Some mixture of
that
that.
strikes their fancy. Of course, we are looking at applications and often have an opportunity to do it in school. And so in that case, we're looking at using standard aligned content for science, social studies, math, and the like. So then the teacher can kind of steer the student to utilize those types of lessons and use the software to express what they know.
Okay. We were talking earlier with one of our workers who was discussing the applications for special education and for autism. You were saying with, I believe it was Lyle, you were talking about how that helps with autistic kids sort of need a ritual, and that being able to use that logic, that setup allows you to follow the same forms and helps those kids focus more.
That's a good way to say it. I don't pretend to know a lot about what autism is, but I have a friend that's been a special ed teacher for about 30 years, and he's spoken about things. And there's plenty of parents out there that really understand a little bit about what it is in the mindset of their autistic child, and maybe some other type of special needs child. And I guess my understanding is that sometimes the human interaction can be distracting, and sometimes just focusing on the screen and having that routine, like you mentioned, makes it easier for them to learn something.
Okay, all right. You were saying that you were also using the multimedia and the comic life for applications, not just video games, but in like applications depending on what they need. So they're sort of creating their own ritual with that.
Yes, well, that's the main starting point. And I don't want to overemphasize the technology, although that's what product we ultimately put out. But the fact remains is that I'm fairly old school. I come from a comic book background. So we always start by having a discussion about what the ideas are, what makes a narrative a story, character design, and that kind of stuff most kids find easier to do with pencil and paper. So we use workbooks to go through the process. But one of the first building blocks is actually drawing a character or drawing a scenario where a character is in a background and has a story.
So do they enjoy writing a lot? So do you work a lot with like background characters to get them to think just beyond, not just that character's work, but beyond how their characters affect other people?
Yes.
Does that help them?
Well, sure, because certainly in fundamental storytelling, as well as in the initial video game design that we do, you're talking often about having a good guy and some bad guys, and then some power-ups where lives can be created, and there's points and things like that. So there is an inherent story there. Now, they can flesh that story out to a degree by choosing a particular type of character, and of course there are the typical ones that they're going to choose, which I mentioned already, the zombies and the ninjas are the big ones. Then they can basically tell a story, and they can go from frame to frame and scenario from scenario as the good guy wins, or if they don't win, then obviously they don't get to the next level. So that's how the storytelling comes in.
That's kind of interesting because I like being a storyteller. I like telling stories. So getting a chance to see these kids who are taking what's in their brain and putting it out onto the paper or on the screen or such, and helping provide a whole new narrative. That's kind of neat. That's kind of neat.
It is kind of cool, and when you think about it, I think part of the challenge to educators is dealing with the Common Core, but also increasing literacy rates and preparing children as early as possible for college and career. And the thing is that when you think about storytelling, I've heard from people that are in advertising, graphic design, the like, working for a variety of different types of companies, that storytelling is kind of the buzzword. So when you get into the adult arena, you're talking about using storytelling in a lot of different ways that we do business. What?
I
went
thought
from
I heard
kids.
that.
Yes.
No, it's fine. I heard a comment at the end of the sentence, and I was just waiting. He's got something to take in the big
I'm
breath.
just saying, I'm just making that transition so that you start with the building blocks with young kids, and you're positioning them so that ultimately they could consider those kinds of ways of thinking later on to enhance their careers.
Very cool. I have lost my.
So in your generation, what kind of games, comics, movies did you enjoy?
I doing? Back in my day, I was really enjoying the Jim Henson stuff.
Okay.
So when Dark Crystal and Labyrinth were coming out, that was really neat for me. I would like to see more of that, I guess, virtual puppetry come back.
Very good.
That was
Puppetry's
what
fun.
really enjoyed, that's what really hooked me into telling stories and, these fantastic worlds where there are no humans. And I was wondering if that sort of storytelling could be rebuilt. That's
And it doesn't necessarily have to be on a computer.
right.
But there is 3D animation and animation where you can have virtual puppets, like you're saying, and they can be the characters. But just think about how there's still some fundamental elements that are in all of these different programs. Characters, a storyline, perhaps a conflict between characters, how that's resolved. That's going to happen in your puppetry as well as in any of these formats as well.
All right. I believe, I'm getting the wrap-up signal. So, Jeff, I'm really pumped to see what's coming up in this technology and how this is
Yes.
going to bring kids to reading.
Well, if you don't mind me mentioning, there are several organizations I belong to that people can check out on the web.
Okay.
First of all, there's readingwithpictures.org, and they do a graphic textbook that delivers content and gets comics in the classroom. And then there's teachingwithcomics.com, and that's how we can actually bridge the professionals that are out there creating comics with educators and come up with lesson plans. So those are two really cool organizations that I'm involved with.
No, that's great. Anything else?
That'll do it.
All right. I want to make sure that you get your stuff out there so we can learn more about this and really get these comics connected.
It's a good place to start.
Outstanding work. I'd like to thank Jeff Barbanell here with
Scholastic Innovation.
Innovations.
You got it.
Innovations, that's right.
Yes.
I'd like to thank the ALAC for providing us this chance to interview and bring the connection together. I want to thank ALAC is at alacaz.org, so you can learn more information about some of the great work that's already here. I'd like to thank the Land of the Nerds, which is our website, so you can go to our main site at landofthenerds.com. You can go to our Twitter, you can go to our Facebook for more pictures and some links to Jeff and some more of his work. We'll be here at Phoenix Comic-Con all weekend from June 5 through 8 at the Phoenix Convention Center. Bye.